Hi, I'm Ferdi Serim, and I want to share this presentation on well-being in a digital age. A dear friend of mine, Margaret Ryle, once taught me that you can't learn from or with anybody with whom you don't have a relationship. So here's my very brief introduction. Ferdi Serim is a Turkish name. In Turkish, it means a unique old soul who steps ahead. Shown here is a view of Üsküdar in Istanbul, where Asia meets Europe, where my father grew up, and where I was conceived, although I was born in Princeton. When he was not allowed to get into the country, he had to make a deal, and in that deal, he had to agree not to teach me the language, the religion, or the culture. But fortunately, he did teach me a little bit of the culture. And here's my cultural hero, Nasruddin Hoja, seen riding on a donkey backwards, because he gave us the wisdom that you can't know where you are until you know where you've been, thus setting the stage for all of the evidence-based practice we do here in the 100%. So 50 years ago in Newark, New Jersey, I began this idea that improvisation could boost creativity. Here you see with some of my students, I put up a prayer at that time saying, "Dear Lord, let me not be one of those teachers who 10 years from now can teach really well but can't play." And 10 years later, there I was on the bandstand with Dizzy Gillespie, bringing his music to high school students around. And that has continued up until 2 weeks ago. You see me and Bob Beck here with a student, Michael, who was at the San Juan Jazz Festival and had the bravery to learn to improvise in front of a room full of other people who didn't bring their instruments. So it still brings me great joy, and it informs everything that you're going to see today. Our work continued in Taos, and here you see some of the people who were working with us there as we learned our lessons. We learned quite a bit about what is necessary, which prepared us for our intersection and convergence with what's going on with 100%. So this led us to offer what we're offering now, and although this presentation is not a pitch for what we're going to be doing, I think it's important to see the two phases that we're doing and how they interact. For thriving and surviving, our solution is improved family engagement. Family and community engagement is what FACES stands for. So on the thriving side, we're offering Playing the Changes, and on the surviving side, we're offering Ascend. Playing the Changes has workshops, webinars, and celebrations of creations that are made by the community, and Ascend helps people develop and certify high-performance skills for college completion and workforce success. What does this picture evoke for you? What feelings come up? You'll notice today I'm going to try not to ask you what you think. I'm going to ask you how it makes you feel. And the topic really here is resilience and self-efficacy, because as my friend David Goldberg has pointed out, being successful in education, work, and life is more about how you feel, act, and think than about what you know. And therefore, before we can continue, you really can't get there from here without addressing social emotional learning. And to give you a glimpse of what that might mean, here are the practices and principles that you will learn and develop and apply when you become fluent with social emotional learning. And what we're wondering is how this can help strengthen our work. Every one of us lives somewhere on this wheel. I call this the four corners picture because I'm more interested in which corner you're in than which spot on the wheel you're in. We're not throwing darts here to find out what your score is. And my goal is to leave you in this quadrant, in the happy and surprised quadrant, where you have good feelings. That's where we'd like to end up. So much of the time, though, we may end up in the other pieces, and where I don't want to leave you is startled or confused or tired or stressed. So the reason I'm saying that is because when we share our goals, it's one of the strongest motivators and effective interventions we can have. So this sets the stage for our courageous conversations. At the summit a couple weeks ago in Santa Fe, we learned that what we have is a will problem, because the failure of society to allow us to do what we know will work is a lack of will, and that in itself is an indicator of issues with transformative social and emotional learning. So what we're going to initiate today are needed, courageous conversations in 5 specific areas around transformative social emotional learning. These are identity, agency, belonging, collaborative problem solving, and curiosity. Great inertia can absorb energy, and we're finding that that is what we're facing. So, as I said before, when learners set goals with another person and they get feedback and support, that is the second strongest of all powerful interventions we can do. And we're going to be using that today. So, what I would like you to do now is I would like you to get up and move. But if you're watching this video, you're probably not going to do that. So instead, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to consider a place that has been a place of refuge for you, a place where you can go and you can feel safe working out any issues or problems that you've had, past trauma, things like that. There is an actual physical place like this in Hawaii called a city of refuge. And that's the inspiration for what you're going to see. The idea for me has been that social emotional learning and the work of 100% itself has become a place of refuge where I can turn to when I know I need the support to continue the work. So for the next 4 minutes, please engage yourself in that because we're going to use that peace and calm that you generate to go through the rest of the courageous conversations we're going to have. We begin with wonder, curiosity. Curiosity is part of responsible decision making and leads to the pursuit of knowledge and different perspectives. It contributes to our attention, engagement, and learning. The most powerful learning doesn't end with the gaining and storing of knowledge. It deepens with its use in daily life. Without the continued spark of curiosity, the flame of learning goes out. An old superintendent in a rural district taught me well. He said, you can act your way into a new way of thinking a whole lot quicker than you can think your way into a new way of acting. And so today, we're going to be looking at learning, unlearning, and relearning so that we ourselves can be more agile and can adapt to the realities around us. We use the hand as a metaphor for this. The hand begins with curiosity, as you've just seen. It connects all of the fingers. And the fingers of the hand are metaphors. They serve as a model that we can use. And over this model, we have put the 5 aspects of transformative social and emotional learning. The thumb is our identity, whether it's a thumbprint or whether we're saying yes, no, or maybe so, in voicing our opinion. When we use our voice to express our identity, it's as unique as that thumbprint, our voice print. Make sure we know who we are. And so that also includes who we are in terms of our ancestors and the resources around us. Our identity is crucial because it leads to agency. That's the pointer finger. Show me your pointer finger and point to what you think is most important. That's how you prioritize and focus your agency. The next finger is one I will not ask you to show me by itself, because socially that has some implications for us. And it is very important when we're looking at belonging and creating to understand the relationship between the two and the fact that when one is creating something, you're going to inevitably engender conflict. So what we've learned is to use this gesture instead of the other gesture, and that means enough. You can't make me so angry that I'm going to resort to the level that you're using. I'm going to say enough, and let's just move on. The ring finger is one for commitment. Anyone who has had a lifetime commitment understands that along with the joys come heartbreak, and you're in it for whatever comes. And we're in it for whatever comes because we are never giving up on our goal of 100%. We have one additional aspect that's not in the Transformative Social Emotional Learning 5, and that is trust. And you'll find later why that trust is so important to our peer coaching and intergenerational coaching model. So with the hand, we're going to be able to explore and have these courageous conversations around the issues that we think are necessary to generate the will to have our solutions implemented. So a context for this is me and we. Me is our personal self. We is the social, us and everybody else, the 100% that we're talking about. But not all of the 100% knows about what we're doing or even is in favor of what we're doing until there's more talk and more experience. What we're talking about right now is the central piece. And this is the piece where we do our work together, the intrapersonal, between the personal and the interpersonal. That's where our work takes place. That's where our dreams turn into our goals and our goals become realities. So that's the essence of what we're doing right now. We're wondering how SEL can help us reach those goals. And it's important to remember when we're doing the me and we that everything is always a matter of perspective. So there are simultaneous perspectives that can be contradictory. For example, many people say the great thing about America is that anyone who works hard can succeed. And while that's true, at the same time other people are saying the sad thing about America is that so many people are working multiple jobs and struggling to keep up, let alone get ahead. Does this sound like some of the folks we're working with 100%? Well, the interesting thing is that according to each of them, they look at the other and say they are wrong. People whose lived experience provides different perspectives than our own are not necessarily lying. The engineer sees a two-dimensional thing and looks at it and says, well, what I want to know is, will it roll? That's evidence. And we need to be using evidence in order to move beyond the conversational ideas that separate us. So as we look at this perspective, when we look at the gears for 100% and we divide them into surviving and thriving, one of the things we're saying is that the broadband for the digital health is necessary for surviving, and it's also necessary for thriving and building human capacity. But the unaddressed social and emotional issues are the sand in the gears, while well-developed social and emotional skills can lubricate the gears. We're suggesting a shift in perspective. We'd like to flip it, and we go to roots and fruits. So surviving is on the root side. The people in the room will please identify themselves and acknowledge each other if they are working in the food sector, the housing sector, the medical and dental healthcare sector, the behavioral healthcare sector, or the transportation sectors. You are all essential for the surviving. And the surviving requires not only electricity and water, it also needs broadband available to everyone. On the thriving side, the fruits come into being through the community schools as our hubs, which is also where parental supports, early childhood learning, youth mentors, and job training can take place. Roots and Fruits is a good way to wonder about our ancestors and wonder about our friends who share their belief with us that death is not the end of everything and that we are the living embodiment of our ancestors' dreams. Everything we have now comes through them and their understandings that we belong to Mother Earth. She has always and always will sustain us, and we need to protect her as part of honoring her. So when we consider different perspectives and we're going to encounter people with different life experiences than we are, it is essential to be open in that way. One of the ways we express that is through the arts and our creativity, as I talked about earlier with the Playing the Changes. So I'd like you to take a look now on what people have created, our participants created. These are regular folks. They're not expert artists. They use their iPhones to create the images you'll see now in a 6-week workshop led by Melanie Schultz, which is one of the workshops we do. But I think it provides a very good nonverbal glimpse into how people are using their creativity to express their identity. So, our first courageous conversation is about identity or kinship, me and we. Identity is a core part of self awareness, how we view ourselves as individuals and a part of the world around us. A healthy sense of identity buffers us against negative or traumatic experiences and can contribute to positive outcomes. On a personal note, no one who knows me or knows what the term means has ever called me neurotypical. From childhood until now, what bothers me the most is the cruelty that was behind the non acceptance. Not so much for me, but for others. I could take myself out of it, but I still witnessed it, and it made me sad. We may love rainbows, but we're not in love with the spectrum. Divergence and convergence are part of the cycle, like agreeing and conflict. When we're talking about identity and kinship, it is really about claiming membership in a group and being claimed as a member of that group. It is reciprocal. And so this is where we get a chance to use our open-mindedness in terms of identity. And we use the social emotional learning skills of learning about one another and realizing that we're all connected. For the work that we want to do, what's needed are people who have rock-solid math skills, can solve real-world problems, can learn new skills on their own, and can execute with care and persistence, always striving for excellence, resulting in a self-confidence that is well-earned. And this is reinforced by research from the OECD when they looked at employability skills and social emotional learning. It's not surprising that students with strong skills in problem-solving, critical thinking, and communication will have higher academic performance and well-being. It's not surprising that adults with strong skills in literacy, numeracy, and problem-solving, especially in rich technology environments, are going to enjoy higher employment levels, wages, and health outcomes. And so the 5 key employability skills that result from using social emotional learning are task performance, emotional regulation, collaboration, open-mindedness, and engaging with others. We just saw in identity how open-mindedness is needed. Let's look at the remainders. For agency, which is a part of self-management, it allows feeling empowered to make choices and take actions that produce a positive difference. Agency helps us making learning and career goal choices. It helps us overcome personal challenges and shape the course of our lives. So agency is something that could help us in terms of boosting that willpower. And this is how we engage in task performance. Especially, we need to use self-compassion on our own efforts and compassion on our team efforts. As we said earlier, being successful in work, life, and learning is more about how you feel, act, and think than about what you know, according to David Goldberg, who invented the CSM. In his view, flourishing in life comes from being proactive in solving problems, knowing how to learn on your own, being careful in your work, having persistence, always aspiring to A-level performance, and developing a hungering or thirst for learning. Most importantly, believing in your ability to succeed gives you the self-efficacy without which you're not even going to try. And this is critical to the people we're trying to serve in both the surviving and the thriving modes. However, there is a problem in New Mexico and in other places, but especially in New Mexico, around literacy. The disconnect is that 2/3 of jobs require a literacy level of 8th grade and above, and only 12% of our people have that. The CSM can be successful. People can be successful with the CSM even if they have a 1 to 3 year gap, which is 36% of our population. People with a 3 to 4 year gap or more are able to get help from the Family Learning Company, and we'll tell you more about that when we get into our coaching. So the CSM, I'm not going to talk about it tremendously, but it is an online course that anyone can do. It takes 20 to 70 hours to do it. It builds college-level, non-algebra quantitative reasoning. People who have gotten the CSM in West Virginia get college-level credit, whether they are enrolled in college or not. It develops high-performance competencies that employers will use as hiring preferences. And if you come in weak, Yeah, but at least you're above the fifth grade level of literacy and numeracy. It will provide deep remediation to bring you up to the level you need to be at. But no matter how good it is, the elephant in the room here is that everyone is so overwhelmed and so overburdened that it's hard to get anybody to consider doing anything new. In the next 2 or 3 minutes, I would like you to see how you feel about these opportunities and about the use of social emotional learning in the work that you're doing. The photographs you'll see were resourced by me going to my next door neighbor, Eddie Soloway, who just happens to be a gifted world-class photographer. And because I keep my windows open when I practice, we've developed a collaboration over the years. So this again is the composition wonder. Please take these moments to look at what your feelings are as you are going through processing the information that we've been talking about today and the ideas of what it's going to mean to you and your team. Our next courageous conversation is belonging or creating. And here we're looking at roots and respect. Belonging is part of social awareness, the experience of acceptance, respect, and inclusion within a group or community. Having a sense of belonging is critical to well-being, motivation, and achievement. As I said before, creating is not separate from belonging. They're reciprocal. Creating requires both compassion and self-compassion, and in both cases, creating is healing. The kinship that we're talking about is an agreement, a mutual recognition of belonging. So while I may not be African American, I feel kinship with my ancestors, Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker and Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday. The list goes on and on and on from cultures around the world. So this kinship and belonging is a power that we can tap into. And this allows us to apply our talents in terms and skills in terms of emotional regulation. We're using the power of restraint and also our ability to handle risky emotions. On my desk or in my library, in my office, these two shells give me an example of natural resilience. The irritations from sand turning into a pearl are inspiring. And the nautilus, realizing that it must grow to survive, breaks through and goes to new levels each time. And this prepares us for what we're dealing with and what the people we're working with are dealing with. In the middle of the resilient zone is where we spend most of our time, and occasionally we may get into the high zone where we're edgy or irritable or have anxiety, or we may get down in the low zone where we're feeling depression or sadness. This is normal. In the resilient zone, we go through all of these things every day. The problem is when we get stuck in either the high zone or the low zone. And that's where we need SEL to help us gain the skills with practice that we can use to stay regulated. That's going to be very important in the next courageous conversation about problem solving together. Collaborative problem solving, part of relationship skills, is the ability to build shared understanding and work together to come to solutions by pooling knowledge, skills, and efforts. And so the collaboration is where we're using that in terms of our resourcing. We're applying it to change the question and to pivot from where are we going to find the people to sustain 100% to instead ask how can we grow them. And we wonder about these efforts, but we have the ability to use some of these new tools and strategies that we've heard about. We're using the CSM for people who are going to need staff to staff their surviving providers, and we're going to add it to the youth mentorship and job training. You'll find out later about what these specific opportunities are. This slide is what caused the convergence between New Mexico FACES and the 100% initiative, because we had already learned about ACEs in our work and the families we were working with, and we understood the relationship of the social determinants of health. But we're asking to add one letter in there, or one word before. We think that emotional well-being requires broadband access to be able to make sure the physical environment is supporting it. Remember, these add up to 100% of well-being. And we now get to 50% by looking at ELL language literacy and digital literacy in terms of the human access, and telehealth access with technology, social media overuse, and social isolation are all pieces that are necessary to be addressed if we're going to reduce the ACEs by increasing the status of the SDOH, social determinants of health. Our final courageous conversation is around what we call accompagnar, which involves trust. And we know that when learners set goals with another person and get feedback, that is the second strongest intervention we possibly have, and one that is within our grasp. This allows us to be more effective in engaging with others. We remember kindness and we use empathy as we provide our intergenerational and peer coaching. And here's how we support this. While we're not in a position to provide broadband and devices, New Mexico Connect from the state of New Mexico is working on that funding. There's $645 million coming down the pike, and we want to tap into as much of that money as we can for the human side. That said, on human access, literacy, and self-efficacy, that's where the CSM certificate comes in, and we're offering 20 coaching accounts for free to anybody who wishes to become a coach. For anyone who is in a family that has people who need support in gaining their literacy in English and Spanish, we're providing 200 free early adopter accounts to the Family Learning Company. And for anybody in San Juan County, we can provide up to 3,500 assessments for the North Star Digital Literacy. This shows people all of the skills that are necessary, allows them to find out where they're strong and where they're weak, and their online learning allows them to build up the skills that they need. So we're looking at this from a systemic point of view. Whatever we've got, we're bringing to the table for San Juan 100%. So we hope some of these will be useful to you. In addition, and in summary, our approach to well-being in a digital age has two parts. We're doing the thriving part in playing the changes, which is where the arts come in. We're doing the surviving part through Ascend, which is where the workforce comes in. On the playing the changes side, you're going to see workshops, webinars, and community celebrations of what people have created. And on the other side of that, the employment side, you're going to see people developing and certifying their high performance competencies so that they will be able to build a vibrant society in San Juan County and in any other county that wishes to work with us. It is reciprocal, it is available, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you very much.